Good morning, everybody. Firstly, welcome and thank you for taking the time to join today's session on Clever Manufacturing Plus. You just skip to the next slide, please, Gary. So on the call today, you have myself. So my name's Craig. I am a business development manager for Clever. And joining me on the call is Gary Frostick, who is one of Clever's senior product developers. And he's also very much the brain behind Manufacturing Plus. So if you do have any technical questions that you think you might have, today's session would be a great opportunity to fire those across. Next slide, please, Gary. So moving on to what we're going to cover, or what we're going to show you today. As you can see on the screen, Manufacturing Plus has a lot of functionality, which Gary will be going over. And again, it's a really good opportunity to ask questions. There is some time at the end for Q&A. However, if you did want to throw a question in the chat as we're going through the deck, we will do our best to answer those for you as we go along. And just before
Okay.
Never mind, wrong slide. I'll hand over to Gary now just to go through the bulk of the presentation.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Manufacturing Plus is sort of a bit unlike some of the other Clever apps, if you're familiar with them, in that rather than sort of covering one particular area, it is a set of functionality that fills in what we feel are the gaps in standard manufacturing. And because there's quite a lot of parts to it, what I thought I'd do is I'll just go through a few slides initially just to sort of cover everything that it does include, and then I'm going to go and demo some of the few key parts of it to you afterwards. That's okay. So we'll start with sort of just general improvements to production bill of materials and routings. So a few of the things we've done there is put a multi-level visual view. So if you've got multi-level bombs, it's a lot easier to visually see the structure. Versions fat boxes make it easier to deal with versions. Pictures on production bombs. On the routing, again, we've got a visual representation. So again, it makes it clear what the routing is, especially if you're using parallel routings. So you can, again, visually see that the routing is correct. An optional setting so that when you go into production bomb or routing, rather than showing you the original one, it will actually show you the active version. Which anyone that deals with multiple versions of bombs and routings, I think, will agree is a problem in the standard application where, when you open a production bomb or routing, you see a version that might be 5 years old and not the one you're currently using with by default. And also, we've done some work to put some analysis screens, which I will actually demo in the production bomb and routing, but basically so you can see if what is actually happening in the shop floor in terms of material consumption or times used matches what's in your production bomb or your routing, and then whether we should be adjusting those times or the component usage to be more accurate, or whether we've actually got a problem somewhere in our production line. One of the other big areas is engineering change control. Again, something that is badly lacking, in my opinion, in the standard application. So again, this is something I would demo, but basically it consists of two things: an engineering change request that gets generated, that can go through a set of approvals that then generates an engineering change order that updates the source documents. And again, we can generate engineering change control from a production bomb or version, routing version, byproducts, which we'll come on to, production order if it relates to change to a very specific production order, or item if literally we were building something from scratch for an item, or want to completely change the manufacturing process for an item. And so again, we've got multi-level approvals, either using standard Business Central approvals if you really use those, if not, Power Automate. Another area is byproducts, and I think I've just define what I mean by byproducts. So in our mind, byproduct is one of two things. It's either a genuine byproduct, so when you make something, we have another product that has a value or has a use or can be used. It could be, an offcut of a piece of material. It could be a genuine, the product that gets created. But when we also talk about byproducts, we can talk about disassembly. So when you've got multiple outputs from one component input as well. So again, with byproducts, we have a list that we assign, like we do a routing or a bill of materials to an item or SKU. Again, we can have routing link code to say what part of the manufacturing process those byproducts get generated. Again, they get copied, shown on production order lines. And if you're using our MES solution in MES as well, they are treated as proper output. So one of the hacks that people used to do for byproducts was to do negative consumption, which technically isn't correct, can have costing implications. So our byproducts are genuine additional outputs. So they include on production journals and output journals. Again, we've got analysis on it. And in the next version of Manufacturing Plus, due at the end of the year, we've got a big costing module, so that when you're doing things like disassembly, you can assign a proportion of the input cost to the various byproducts. So another big area is tooling. So I think we can all agree that standard Business Central's little list view on a routing for tooling is a little suboptimal. So with tooling, we actually have a dedicated page. So it gets copied, all the details get copied to the operation and to the routing and to production orders, like everything else, like a component. Tools can have attributes, like you have item attributes. Again, you can describe the tool. You can find a tool based on a particular set of attributes. It has a ledger entry to every time it gets used. We record that, record the machine it was used on. We can record and work out either number of impressions, if something like a molding, or time it's actually in use. So again, we can do things like check for maintenance, when maintenance due, when it might need replacing. If there's a problem with a particular tool, we can actually then trace all the production orders that used it. And again, we can check in a tool in or out for production processes. So we have like an audit trail. And again, if you're using our MES solution, this can be done within part of MES. So a full log of the tool movements, and we can integrate tools with fixed assets for control as well. Few things we've added to allow better visibility. So we have chart views on machine and work center load pages, which actually also highlight capacity issues. Again, makes it a little bit easier to see things on the standard statistics views. We have capacity load dashboard, so you can see in one screen any load issues or the current load across all your machine and work centers. And we have work and machine center schedules that can be viewed graphically in a calendar or timeline view. And again, I'll show that in a minute. Also got some better views around production status. So we've got production status dashboard. So you can see in one screen the status of all current production orders. We've got shortage dashboards, again, highlight shortages. We have production status. So on production order, you can clearly see the current status, especially again, if you're using this in conjunction with our MES, you can in real time see the status of that production order and what's actually happening on the shop floor. And we've got a visual timeline view to, again, very clearly show what's happening on the shop floor and any problems. So on that point, unless any questions at this point, I'm going to actually jump in and demo a few of these functions. So we'll start looking at some of the improvements to production bombs and routings. So if we go and look at this particular production bomb, we can see that we've got a visualization at the bottom of the production bomb, and that will show multiple levels. So it's a multiple level bomb. So again, just making it easier to very quickly and visually see what's there. And again, we've got a slightly different change structure. So we now, if there's an active version, this will now show, depending on the setup, on the manufacturer setup page. When I go in, this will either show standard, what standard Business Central does, or it will show the active version, and it make it very clear here that it is showing the active version. We've got links for engineering change orders, and I will demonstrate that in a minute. Just make that clear. And we have our analysis. So what the analysis does is it looks at all the production orders that this particular production BOM was used on. And if it's used on multiple items, we can then put an item filter on, or a variant code filter. And again, we can put a date filter on and look at a particular thing. And what it actually is doing is looking at what the expected quantity we use against the actual average quantity. So I've deliberately made this quite different, sort of make it show in the view that it's very data. Obviously, in reality, it should be hopefully a lot closer. But again, what we can actually see here is what the expected quantity, what the actual average quantity we used was, with the difference, and the difference represented as a percent, and also the standard deviation. Now, what having standard deviation gives us is it shows us how frequently that is wrong. So we have a very, very low standard deviation. It sort of tells us that virtually all production orders that we are doing, it's roughly the same difference from what we expect. So that would indicate to us that actually our production BOM is wrong. We're consistently using more or less of a component than we actually state in our production BOM, and maybe we should be amending our production BOM to better represent what is actually happening, so we've got more accurate costing, more accurate planning going forwards. If we've got a high standard deviation, what it's actually telling us is that we're all over the place. Sometimes we're using what we expect, sometimes we're using a substantial difference, and that may highlight an issue on the shop floor with a particular machine or a particular operator. So then we can dive in a bit more and see where this is used and try and look at those differences and see if there's a pattern, whether it's a particular machine, a particular operator that's causing a difference, and investigate how we resolve that. So it's basically giving us a tool that allows us to quite visually and quickly see how accurate our production BOMs are. We have exactly the same functionality with routings as well, so you can see whether our setup time and our run times that we have on our routing are actually matching what we have, we're actually using on the shop floor, especially if you're using that in conjunction with MES, so you're getting very, very accurate times coming back about how long it is actually taking you in reality. Okay, so if we just then have a quick look at a routing to show the equivalent. So again, we have a visualization of our routing. It's a parallel routing. So again, we've got multiple paths. Again, we've got something to show versions quickly and easily. And again, depending on the setup, we can go into active version. And again, we've got the same analysis that I just showed. We'll show it again. So this is actually showing a time difference. Okay, so that's like our basic sort of changes that we've done for routings and BOMs. So we'd move on to engineering change control next. And I'm actually going to start this outside engineering change control. I'm actually going to start this with a scenario. So I'm just going to go into one of our new dashboards, which is our production order shortage dashboard. So what this is actually showing me is all the production orders where I potentially can't complete them because I've got shortage of materials. So if I look at this one here, we see my only shortages of a screw. So surely there's something we can do about that. So if I just actually then go and look at this production order. And then we can see it's already running very late. So what I'm going to actually do from here is go in and create a engineering change request. So engineering change requests, as I said earlier, we can create them directly from a production order, and it limits the change just to that production order, or I can create it from a production BOM, set of byproducts, routing, or from the item itself. And I can actually do it from the item itself to actually create a new routing, a new production BOM for that item. So if I'm creating a new item. So because I've done this from production order, it's bringing in all the components, all the byproducts, and all the operations from this particular production order. So there's the screw that I know I've got the shortage of. So what I can do is I can either go in and sort of select substitutions. So I can select the substitution, and what you see there is it's saying I'm going to remove the screw I've got the shortage of, replace it with an alternative screw. I can then put some comments in. So I'll put a justification for it. And then, if I'm done a basic change, but what I can actually do is I can add a completely new item, reduction BOM or byproduct, machine or work center. I can remove or adjust a particular line. I can put comments on an individual line again to say why I'm doing it. Look at my item availabilities or where something's used. But some of the other things I can do is I can, having made the change, I can look at my statistics. And again, I've really skewed the cost of a screw just to show this. But what this will actually then show me is my current material costs, my new costs, what the change is, and what is a percentage and amount. So I can actually see quite clearly what the differences I'm making is. And again, I can do things like look at my bill of materials, and it will show me my existing and new bill of materials. Again, it's a single level, so it's not necessarily a thing, but also multi-level. It makes it very clear again what the difference is. But when I'm actually happy with that, I can send it for approval. For demo purposes, I'm set up as my own approver, so I don't actually need to do that. But in a normal case, we can make it go to as many people as need to be for it to approve the change. And then when I'm happy, I can just release it because I don't need approvals. So that basically goes through, checks everything's okay, checks all the routing's valid, all those sort of things. And then when I'm actually happy, I can register the change. And registering the change does several things. It creates an engineering change order, which is a record of what's actually happening, who's approved it, why it's happening, and all of those sort of things. So I can just have a look at that now. So again, here's my change. I've got my justification. I've got a record of what's the details of what's changed. If it had approvals, I'd have records of all the approvals. And then it's actually doing, at the end, showing the changes. So in this case, the only thing that's been changed as a result is it's modified the production order. But obviously, depending on what I did, if I was doing it from an item, I could be changing production bombs and routings, all those things. So I've got a record of what was changed, and I can actually go and show that. And if I now look at my components on production order, we can now see that it's replaced the screw 1A. It's actually updated the production order, and it's now able to progress. So that's engineering change orders very, very quickly. So the next thing on the list is byproducts. So as we said earlier, byproducts can either be genuine byproducts or disassembly. So if we go into the production byproduct screen, what you can see is it looks very much like a production bomb or routing, and that is very deliberate. So like a production bomb, we can put comments, we can have versions of it, we can copy, we can do our engineering change control, and again we've got our analysis here. So again, we can actually see the same as, our expected against our actuals. So this kind of behaves exactly the same as a production bomb, and again, what we actually do is like we do on production bomb or routing, we assign it to an item. Work. So again, on the replenishment tab, we have production byproducts number as well, and again on the stock keeping unit. So production byproducts flow through to production bill of materials. So if we just look at a production order. So on the line, like we've got components, we also have byproducts. So you can see our byproducts there. And then if we were to do things like run the production journal, again, you can see we actually have additional output lines which are marked as byproducts. So again, we can record the byproducts, and that will actually go through and hit the item ledger as an additional output. So that's byproducts. Again, if you're using our MES solution, we have the option there to record an output or your byproducts like you can with your component usage as well. So that's byproducts. And now we're going to sort of move on to tooling. So if we have a look at the tools, just like sort of things, we now have an actual card for the tooling. On a tool, we have a number description. Again, we can assign it to a category. And then we have attributes. So like you have your item attributes, we can have tool attributes, and you can use those to find tools. Again, we can link to fixed assets, and then we can put a usage basis. The usage basis is how we record usage. So we can do usages based on runtime, i.e. the time it's actually being used, or we can do it on usages. So if you've got something like an injection molding tool, you might do, you know, one pressing of it for every item you produce, for example. If we do time, we can say whether we include the setup time in that, and whether we automatically record usage, i.e. we just record what's in here every time it's used, or whether we actually do usage as part of our capacity reporting, capacity journals. So currently it's showing us the status is available. And then we can do things like maintenance, record who the maintenance number is, the last maintenance state, which is coming from related to fixed asset. And then we can have maintenance intervals, which and lifespan. And then we've got our statistics. So we've got total number of usages, total number of time, how many since maintenance, how many uses since maintenance, how many times since maintenance, and the periods since maintenance. So again, we can check all of that. And then every time it gets used, it creates a tool ledger entry. So it records what's done, the production order, the machine or work center that it was done in, operation, and then the output quantity, scrap quantity as a result of the tool, the usages and time, and any dimensions. And again, we've got that linked into the valid entries. So that gives you an absolute audit trail of what tool was used and what production order, what machine. If you have a problem with a tool, you identify a defect with the tool, you can then go back and see everywhere that it was used, what production orders, what machines it was used with. So it gives you a sort of full audit trail. So then a tool has status, so we can check it out to production order. And again, obviously you can do that from within the production order within MES as well. Check in, we can check in with thought damage. So if someone that's using it finds there's a problem with it, they can check it in with thought damage. Again, I can't do that because it's but and then they put a comment on it to say what the problem is, and it will make it a status of 40. So again, we then know it needs to go for maintenance, or something needs to be done, or at least at bare minimum someone needs to expect it. And again, if you're using tools with our quality app, you don't have to have either, they're independent. If you have both together, you can actually set up quality to do scheduled quality checks on tools as well. So to actually have someone go and do a check on them, record particular tests, metrics, and then record that, and again have the audit trail of that within against the tool record. So basically, the tools are an extension of the standard Business Central table. So again, you have a tool against a routing. Again, the tools will go through to the engineering change control, so you can amend tools against routing as part of engineering change control, and again, obviously through to production order, which record the usage. And then on the production order, we have the option to record, to check in or check out. And again, with MES, we can check in a tool, check out a tool to particular machine center and production order. Okay. So I'm getting through this quite quickly, actually. So some of the other things we've done are improvements to capacity visibility. So if we actually go and have a look at machine center, or conversely the same applies to work centers. So if we look at the statistics, statistics, the load I meant. So what we've now got is we've got a chart view. So the chart view actually shows our capacity as a line, and it will show the load as a bar column. So again, we are giving you the visual representation on top of what is here in the actual list view. And again, we will highlight things that are over capacity in a different color. So again, you can see that very quickly and visually where you have a capacity constraint. The other thing that we have is so let's go into a schedule view. So this will actually give us, and sorry, I haven't actually got any data in it, but this will give us a visual view of, in a calendar, what we've got scheduled for this particular machine center, and we can actually view that either as a calendar view or as a timeline. So again, it's just giving you that visual view of what your load is, what you've got scheduled, without actually going into textual list view. So if we're just looking at dashboards, we've got our production status dashboard. So this shows us all the current release production orders, and we can view it by production order, by customer, group by customer, group by item, family or due date, and we can filter it as well. So this is actually showing us starting date, due date, highlighted in red because these are all overdue, because obviously the data's back in time. And it's actually showing us the current operation, when that operation was due to start and end. And if we're using this in conjunction with MES in real time, it'll come back and tell us when we actually started those operations. So again, we can see the operation status in progress, and we can actually again see the last output. So again, it's just a way of actually checking if production orders are on track. And if we hit show progress, it will give us a visual view of that production order. So again, it will show us that we successfully completed the molding and the finishing, but we're held up in painting and coating, and that's showing an exclamation mark because something is wrong at this point, because we're well behind where it should be. And then all the other stages are now red because we're predicting we're late as a result of that on the subsequent stages. So again, it's given us actual visibility of what we've actually got in the where things are in actual real time. So again, if we actually go and look at production order, check that one again. So on the production order, we've got a status fat box. So again, it's showing us this particular production order, starting and ending times, fat is late again, highlighted red. And we'll very quickly, I can see the current operation it's in again, and again, highlighting the fact that we are running late. And again, I can get to that progress view from within here. So it's literally showing the whole lot is running late. And then again, just sort of on the whole visibility things on the, if I actually go into the details and look at a routing, Again, I've got my visualization of the routing when everything is due into each stage, and again, the fact that highlighting that we're running late. And again, I can actually look at my bill of materials from within here. And again, I can see the bill of materials, and I can actually span it out to show operations as well if I want. So again, it's just showing us again that whole multi-level structure from within here as a visualization. And then the last thing we've got around sort of again that visualization is production timeline. So what this actually does, so again, this is showing it for that particular production order, but if I just run it overall, it will show it for every release production order I've got. So what this is actually showing us is this blue line at the top is our planned start and end dates for the production order. And then the bar line is what is actually happening. So in this particular example, we are pretty much 100% complete, and we're pretty much matching our planned against what's actually happened. But if we look at some of the other ones, and let's just expand a few of these out. So expand it out, we can see, sorry, my machine is running a bit slow all of a sudden. We can actually see that the operations, and that one again is running very, very late, and therefore it's highlighted red. So again, if we look at this one, again, it's running very late to the planned. So again, you can see the knock-on effect, and now we've got a predicted, because of the knock-on effect that's running late, we've now got a predicted end time, because we can see the knock-on effect that we're running late. I'm just trying to find ones. So again, if we look at this one, it's highlighted green because we're actually ahead of schedule. So that's our planned start time was, in this particular case, was 22:20, and we actually started it at 4 o'clock. So we, again, we got a nice visualization that we are ahead of schedule, and that we're all good with that one. So again, this isn't a planning tool. I want to stress that very clear. What this actually is it's a real-time visualization of what is actually happening on the shop floor, showing problems, trying to highlight problems so they can be addressed earlier in the process. So I think that's all I actually wanted to demo. So I'll sort of open up the floor for any questions anyone has.
I think if I can just jump in as well, that everything that Gary has just shown you, we do have a Clever Doc site which has all the setup information that you'd need if you were to download the app and install the free trial. So I will link that in the chat now. But so if you do download the apps and you are looking at installing it, all of the setup information is going to be available on Clever Docs. If you do need additional support, by all means, please feel free to reach out. But we would encourage you to check the doc site in the first instance just to see if there's any information there that, could help you solve your query a little bit faster. But yeah, if anybody else has any other questions, please feel free to ask them now. You can always ping myself after the call. If you think of something after this presentation will also be sent out afterwards. So if you did want to review it at your own time again, and then if any questions come from that, please just let us know. But does anybody have any questions? Silence is bliss. If nobody has any questions, then I think we're good to close the call. Thank you very much for spending the time joining the webinar, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.